You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you're letting the world control too many things that should be in your hands. You think it's because of circumstances, fate, or other people, but the truth is, it's not. Life revolves around one simple principle: control. The one who controls their words, thoughts, emotions, and money is the one who controls their life. And if you can't take ownership of these four things, sooner or later they will take ownership of you. And once you're being controlled, you lose your freedom, your energy, your ability to choose. You react instead of initiate. You exist instead of live. Look at the people you assume have it all. They're not luckier than you, not more talented than you, and they weren't born into more ideal conditions. They've simply learned to control the things you're letting slip away every single day. They control their words. They don't let impulsiveness ruin important relationships. They control their thoughts. They don't let invisible fears shape major decisions. They control their emotions. They don't let a bad morning turn into a meaningless day. And most importantly, they control their money. They don't trade long-term future for short-term ego gratification. Every successful person you know, everyone you admire, shares one trait: they master the inner world before they reach the outer world. While most people are trying to control others, control validation, control circumstances, these individuals dedicate all their energy to controlling themselves. You can't steer a ship if the rudder is in someone else's hands. And you can't navigate your own life if you let your words escape without thinking, if you let your mind drown in worry without order, if you let your moods poison every relationship, and if you let money dictate your emotions, your values, and your direction. No one is coming to save you. No one will take responsibility for what you've let slip out of control. Everything you're experiencing, from work, health, relationships, to that feeling of being stuck, is the result of what you've allowed to rule over you all this time. Nothing is more terrifying than being controlled by your own distorted self. You don't need anyone else to block your way if you are the one standing in it. And you'll never break through if you can't command yourself to stop at the right time, to be silent at the right time, to move forward at the right time. Stop trying to control the world. The world doesn't wait for you, doesn't prioritize you, doesn't adjust itself to your feeling, but you can control how you respond, how you choose, how you act. And through that, you control the result. Success doesn't start from comfort, it begins with discipline. Freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want, it comes from controlling what you desire. Strength isn't in the loudest voice, it's in the silence that speaks in the right moment. Happiness doesn't arise from smooth sailing, it comes from having enough control not to be crushed by the storm. In the end, either you control life or life will control you. There is no third option. And in this very moment, you must decide which side you belong to. And again, every word you speak is a command sent straight to your subconscious. You're not just describing your life, you're programming it. When you say, "I'm tired," you're not just expressing a feeling, you're pressing a button that confirms that state as your truth. When you say, "Life is unfair," you're pushing your mind into an operating system where all effort feels meaningless. And the dangerous part is you don't realize those seemingly harmless words are reshaping your environment every day, influencing how you act, feel, and choose. You say everything's too hard and you start shrinking. You say, "I'm not good enough," and you stop before you even begin. You say, "I'm not as lucky as others," and you strip yourself of the power to change. These aren't just statements, they're commands, and your subconscious follows them blindly. It doesn't know what's real or fake, true or false. It only knows how to repeat what you say again and again. A negative phrase repeated long enough becomes truth in behavior. And when behavior changes, life changes too. You don't need anyone else to hold you back if you've mastered the habit of holding yourself down. You don't need people to doubt you if you already live in doubt. What you say about yourself becomes the limit you cannot cross. On the other hand, if you say, "I can do this, I'm learning, I'm growing," you're planting seeds for an entirely different reality, not because of magic, but because your mind starts working with your words to find evidence for this new belief. You'll start noticing opportunities. You'll face challenges with more courage. You'll be more patient with yourself because you reprogram your inner system just by speaking differently. Try it right now. Recall a time you said something positive about yourself. "I am worthy. I am stronger than I thought. I'm not giving up." And remember how different your energy felt in that moment? Those words powered your spine. They didn't just lift you up, they kept you standing when everything around you fell apart. And the most important thing is you have full authority over what comes out of your mouth. Every sentence is a brick. What are you building, a fortress or a prison? No one is immune to the influence of words. The most inspiring people you know, they don't complain, they don't criticize, they don't spread fear with their words. They speak to heal, to awaken, to uplift. They use language as a tool to build, not a weapon to destroy. And you have that ability too. Every time you choose silence over blame, you preserve your power. Every time you choose encouragement over judgment, you transform your surroundings. And every time you say to yourself, I'm still moving forward, you take back the wheel instead of letting life drift aimlessly. Never underestimate the power of a single sentence. It can pull you from the edge or push you over it. It can heal someone's heart or shatter it. Most of all, it can shape you day by day, choice by choice, step by step. Want a different life? Start speaking differently. Don't use your words to describe fear. Use them to paint the future you want, and repeat it long enough, real enough. Because what you say, you will live. No one listens to you more than you do. No one repeats words into your head more often than you repeat to yourself. And the paradox is most of what you whisper to yourself every day are things you'd never dare say straight to someone else's face. You tell yourself you're not good enough, not fast enough, not smart enough. You keep reminding yourself that you'll fail, that there's no reason to try, that others are definitely doing better. You think those are just random passing thoughts, but the truth is they are the programming code that runs your entire behavioral nervous system. They're not throwaway lines, they are commands. Every time you say, I can't, you're not just doubting your ability, you're blocking your action. Every time you tell yourself, I'm not worthy of success, you're installing failure into your next step. You think it's just emotion. No, it's instrument. And the brutal part is your mind obeys you without question. Whether you're right or wrong, if you repeat it long enough, your mind accepts it as fact. It doesn't argue, it doesn't investigate, it doesn't verify, it just records and then builds your entire behavior around that belief. The question isn't, are you talking to yourself? The real question is, what are you saying? The sentences you whisper in your mind are more powerful than what you speak aloud because they're unfiltered. They run constantly, persistently, with no supervision and no opposition. And you hear them so often that eventually you become them. You no longer see who you are. You only see the version of yourself you've been narrating. If you keep telling yourself that you're not capable, you'll begin to act as if that's obvious truth. You'll turn down opportunities. You'll fear challenges. You'll quit early. Not because you're powerless, but because you've programmed yourself not to believe. On the other hand, if you begin to correct each sentence, you'll see the domino effect. When you stop saying, I'm terrible at this, and instead say, I'm learning to do it better, your mind stops retreating and starts moving forward. When you say, I'll handle this instead of I'm doomed, your body's energy shifts, muscles loosen, your heartbeat slows, your brain sharpens, and your next action changes. No one else needs to push you. All it takes is changing how you talk to yourself. Like updating an operating system. Successful people aren't fearless. They just don't let their inner voice drag them down. They train their mind like you'd train a pilot before takeoff. Their internal language is intentional. There's no room for what if I fail. No room for I'm not sure. They choose to say I'm ready to learn from mistakes. I'll figure out another way. I deserve something better. And by telling themselves this every day, they carve a new identity into their being, resilient, focused, and driven. You can start over at any time. You don't need to change the world out there, just the world inside your head. Turn off the toxic script, rewrite the inner dialogue, repeat the things you want to believe until they feel real. And once you believe, you'll take action. When you act, you'll get results. When you see results, belief gets even stronger. And it all begins with one simple thing. What are you saying to yourself every day? Every battle begins in the mind, not at work, not in the family, not between you and the world, but between you and yourself. If you can't control your mind, you'll become its victim. Thoughts are a double-edged sword. They can build or they can destroy. And the paradox is this: the most dangerous enemy you face each day doesn't live outside. It lives inside your head in the form of whispers of doubt, imagined failure scenarios, and toxic questions like, what if I can't do it? What if others are better? What if everything falls apart? You think you're being responsible, but in truth, you're being betrayed from within. The mind doesn't distinguish between thoughts you consciously choose and thoughts you passively allow. It only repeats whatever shows up most often. If you let fear dominate the channel, it will amplify fear. If you let doubt sit quietly in your head, it will gather more evidence to prove you're not good enough. And once your mind is left running on autopilot, you'll be dragged around like a rudderless boat, drifting with emotion, circumstance, and negativity you don't even realize you're helping to maintain. Controlling your mind doesn't mean you're never afraid, never sad, never angry. Those emotions are real, but what you can and must control is whether those emotions get to sit in the driver's seat. Be afraid, but act anyway. Lose confidence, but keep practicing. Be confused, but keep moving. Even one step at a time. This isn't pretending to be strong. It's choosing not to let temporary emotions decide your long-term destiny. To control the mind, you have to observe it like an outsider. Every time a negative thought arises, don't let it finish. Interrupt it, question it, challenge it. Ask, who says that? Is there any proof? Am I believing something that's not true? Only when you start asking questions does the mind pause. And it's in that pause that you regain control. If not, it will continue running the same old script, dragging you down without your awareness. The mind is where every action begins. You can't have a clear life if your thinking is foggy. You can't make sharp decisions if your head is filled with doubt, regret, and overthinking. You want to elevate your life? Start by cleaning out the junk in your head. Remove thoughts that don't serve your goals. Cut off arguments that lead only to excuses. Re-examine every limiting belief. And most importantly, start replacing each old thought with new definitions. More positive, more practical, more proactive. So the person who controls their mind no longer reacts impulsively, they respond consciously. They don't explode with anger just because someone else was wrong. They don't collapse from criticism. They don't waver in the silence of the crowd. They know what's true, and they defend that truth against the daily noise. That's not coldness, it's clarity. You can't build a powerful operating system if you allow emotional viruses to enter every day. Every uncontrolled negative thought is a breach, and if you don't patch it, it will spread and corrupt the entire system's performance. You can reprogram your mind at any time. You don't need to wait for enough evidence to believe. You believe first, you act on that belief, then the results will confirm the belief you chose. And just like that, your mind begins to pledge loyalty to the stronger version of yourself that you're building, but only if you take full responsibility for every thought running through your head. If not, you don't need anyone to betray you. Your own mind will do it first. Your mind is not a marketplace where anyone can walk in and sell whatever they want. It is the command center that coordinates your entire inner life and external results. Every thought that enters is a piece of data. Each data point repeated often enough becomes a belief. Every belief leads to a chain of actions. And that chain of actions creates the life you're living. This means that if you don't control what you take in, you're letting others program your life without even asking permission. Not all information is worth hearing. Not every story is worth knowing. Not every person deserves to use your mind as a dumping ground for emotional garbage. But many people don't understand this. They expose themselves for hours each day to negative news, pointless gossip, and toxic content sugar-coated on social media. They watch, they read, they listen, and think they're fine. But they don't realize that exhaustion, doubt, discouragement, and disorientation are quietly seeping into every layer of their thoughts, every decision, and every view they hold of themselves. You cannot expect your mind to be strong, clear, and positive if you feed it every day with someone else's negativity. You cannot expect breakthrough thinking if you continue consuming things that are shallow, repetitive, empty, and directionless. The mind is just like the body. It responds directly to the quality of the nutrients you feed it. If you eat junk, you get sick. If you think junk, you get paralyzed. And the dangerous part is most people don't even realize they're mentally poisoned because it doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in, it makes you impatient, quick to anger, hopeless, and gradually kills your fighting spirit. All while you still think you're living normally. You need to become the gatekeeper of your mind, a smart, alert, and disciplined gatekeeper. Ask yourself before accepting anything, does this information make me stronger? Is this person inspiring me or draining my life energy? What I'm reading, watching, or hearing, does it bring me closer to my goals or pull me further away? If the answer isn't clear, cut it out. Your mind has no room for randomness because it reflects everything you allow in, whether good or bad. And remember, other people's energy is also a form of content. When you're around those who constantly complain, envy, and criticize, you'll slowly become pessimistic and defensive. But when you're around those who speak about opportunity, growth, and creativity, you'll expand your thinking and take bolder action. Your mental environment is just as important as your physical one, and you are the designer of both. You can choose what to read, who to listen to, who to spend time with, what to keep in your mind, and what to discard. That's not selfish. It's protecting your life's operating system from destructive code. Replace toxic news with books that make you think. Instead of getting pulled into endless arguments, listen to those who have lived, struggled, and transformed through discipline and awareness. Choose music that lifts your mood. Choose conversations with people who make you want to be better. And if needed, be willing to disconnect from any source of content that causes you to step back, doubt yourself, or lose your motivation. Because no one can enter your mind unless you allow it. And you are responsible for everything you've let in without checking. Emotions are not the enemy, they are just waves. The problem is whether you ride the wave or let it sweep you away. One uncontrolled burst of anger can destroy a relationship you spent a lifetime building. One moment of unguarded weakness can lead to a decision you'll regret for years. One sadness left unchecked for too long can erode your entire fighting spirit. Emotions come and go, but if you don't learn to steer them, they'll stay, take root, and steer you instead. Most people believe emotions happen randomly. They wake up feeling off and assume the whole day will go badly. They let a hurtful comment derail their entire week. They let one failure make them question their entire self-worth. But emotion is not destiny, it's a reaction, and every reaction can be observed, identified, and restructured. If you're alert enough, you can't stop the wave from coming, but you can learn to stand firm, find balance, and ride it without drowning. You're not wrong for feeling tired, hurt, or defeated. You're only wrong if you let that emotion become the reason you stop moving forward. Because emotion only holds power when you hand it the steering wheel. You can choose how to respond. You can choose how to interpret. You can even choose to do nothing. And sometimes that's the highest form of control. An emotionally mature person is not someone who feels nothing. It's someone who feels everything yet knows how to direct the current instead of being directed by it. The problem is no one taught you how to do that. School taught you formulas, but not how to manage your mood after disappointment. Society taught you to either suppress emotions or explode and call it being real. But between those extremes is the zone of control, where you learn to name the emotion, understand its cause, choose your response, and get through it without leaving damage behind. That's emotional intelligence, and it's a skill that every human must build if they don't want to live a life of constant passive reaction. Start by observing yourself. Every time you get angry, ask, what am I protecting? Every time you feel sad, ask, what am I still attached to that's no longer true? Every time you feel anxious, ask, what imagined scenario am I reacting to? When you are clear-headed enough to ask these questions, you break the automatic chain of reaction. And in that moment, you take the wheel back. You're no longer dragged by the wave. You start to ride it. Negative emotions aren't always bad. Sometimes the warning signals that you're misaligned with your values, that you need rest, that there's a lesson waiting. But if you react without decoding the signal, you ruin the opportunity. You need to learn the language of emotions. Sadness doesn't mean weakness. Anger doesn't mean you're right. Worry doesn't mean you're about to fail. Just information. And like all information, you can either process it or be ruled by it. Train yourself to regulate emotional energy the way you'd learn to control a machine, not by suppressing or denying, but by mastering each wave of fluctuation. When emotion spikes, breathe slower. When it pulls you down, redirect your focus. When it repeats, write it down so you can see it clearly. You can't control the world, but you can control your inner state. And that's the only thing that determines the quality of your life experience. In the end, emotions will always be waves. The more you resist, the stronger they get. The more you fear, the deeper they pull. But if you accept them, understand them, and learn how to stay steady when they arrive, you'll realize you're not just surviving, you're surfing, calm, in control, with direction. And nothing in this life can drown you again. Gratitude is not a beautiful feeling reserved only for peaceful days. It is a weapon, a quiet one, but powerful enough to defeat the negativity silently eating away at your spirit each day. In a world that constantly pushes you to have more, move faster, and reach higher, gratitude becomes an act of defiance. It forces you to stop, observe, and acknowledge what you already have instead of obsessing over what's missing. And in that moment of stopping, your mind shifts from scarcity to abundance, from worry to calm, from doubt to understanding. A weakened spirit is not because there's nothing to be grateful for, but because the habit of recognizing it was never cultivated. Gratitude doesn't appear when everything is smooth. It activates strongest when everything is in chaos. When you lose, fail, get hurt, and still manage to say, I'm still breathing, still have a chance, still have something to start over with. In that moment, you are no longer a victim. You become the one who redefines the meaning of your life with humility. The deep awareness that if there's still something to appreciate, there's still a reason to go on. No one can feel doubt and gratitude in the same breath. Just like no one can feel envy and peace while reflecting on what they already have. Gratitude is the fastest inner cleanse. It doesn't erase problems, but it gives you the clarity not to turn them into crises. It pulls you out of the spiral of, I need more, to remind you that some things you have today were once yesterday's dreams. That keeps you from forgetting how far you've come, even if no one else sees it. The problem is that most people wait for happiness to arrive before feeling grateful, but they don't realize it's gratitude that opens the door for happiness to enter, not the other way around. When you practice gratitude, you're training your mind to focus on what's right. When you repeat what's right, you strengthen positive awareness. When awareness changes, choices change. When choices change, outcomes change. That whole chain begins not with grand actions, but with a gentle inner whisper, I'm thankful for this. Observe the people who remain calm and clear in adversity. You'll see they don't have fewer problems. They just have the habit of gratitude. When they fail, they look for the lesson. When they're rejected, they look for new opportunities. When they lose something, they return to what remains. That's not naivety or denial. It's how they protect their energy from being drained by things they can't control. You don't need to write a long list every day to practice gratitude. Just pause for a few seconds right in the middle of chaos and ask yourself, is there anything today that made me feel a little lighter? Maybe it's a kind word, a meal, a ray of sunlight, a moment when you didn't give up. And when you train yourself to notice the small things, you'll realize your energy shifts. You begin to see opportunities inside challenges. You begin to treat yourself and others with more softness. And you begin to see clearly happiness doesn't come from adding more. It comes from recognizing what's already there. Gratitude doesn't solve every problem, but it helps you stay calm enough not to make the problem worse. It's the doorway to clarity, the pillar that helps you rise, the shield that protects you from the bitterness, anger, and darkness of the world. While others are led by emotions, you stay centered. While others blindly chase what's far away, you know how to honor the journey. And while things may still be far from perfect, you can live deeply, brightly, and firmly because of one simple thing: you are grateful. Money has never been the problem. The problem is that you've given it the power to control your mood, dictate your actions, and define your self-worth. You don't hate money. You hate the feeling of being ruled by it. You hate those end-of-the-month days when you're afraid to open your banking app. You hate having to fake being okay at a party while your mind is filled with negative numbers. You hate knowing you're trading your life's time for a job that only gives you survival. But what you're angry at isn't money itself. It's the fact that you haven't gained control over it, that it's taken over too many areas of your life. You think having more money will solve everything. Wrong. Having more money without a mindset to manage it means you're just shifting from one kind of debt to another, from one form of anxiety to a new version of insecurity. Money doesn't automatically make you free. You must become intentional first. Then money becomes a tool. Money has no feelings, no fairness, no loyalty. It responds to those who know how to operate it and abandons those who let emotion drive every financial decision. You buy something unnecessary because I'm too tired, I deserve a reward. You swipe the card because everyone else has one, I can't be left out. You sign up for an expensive course out of fear of missing out. That's not spending, that's reacting. You're letting temporary emotions decide long-term consequences. And when you lose control of money, you start pointing fingers at the economy, at low wages, on a poor childhood. But what you don't realize is that you were the one who gave money the driver's seat while you sat in the back with no map, no direction. Gaining control of money doesn't start by earning more. It starts by managing better what you already have. If you don't know how to keep your first $100, you won't know how to keep 10,000. If you haven't learned to prioritize long-term over short-term emotions, you'll keep running in the loop of earn, spend, lack, borrow. And if you let money define who you are, you'll never feel enough, because someone else will always be richer, flashier, better at things that don't really matter. Taking control of money isn't about becoming stingy, it's about becoming intentional. You spend based on value, not habit. You invest with direction, not fear of missing out. You save not from scarcity, but out of respect for your future. And most importantly, you don't use money to prove anything, not to others, not to your ego. You use money to serve your life, not force your life to revolve around it. Look back at your day. How many of your actions were driven by financial worry? How many of your negative emotions came from lack of control over cash flow? How many major life decisions, from career to education to relationships, have been shaped by money pressure? And most importantly, if you keep living like this, where are you headed? Are you moving down a financial path defined by circumstance, or are you consciously creating freedom? Money can be a tool for liberation, or it can be chains that tighten. It depends on how you use it. It can help you help others, create value, pursue passion, and live in alignment with your truth, but only if you know how to control it. Only if you can say no to what doesn't deserve your money. Only if you stop measuring your worth by the number in your bank account. And only if you start using money like a leader, not like a follower. Money has no right to own you unless you hand it the keys. So from this moment on, take the wheel back. Don't wait until you have more to learn how to control it. Start with the little you have starting today, because true freedom doesn't lie in how much you have, but in your ability to master it before it masters every decision of your life. Wealth doesn't come from how much you earn. It comes from how much you keep every time money passes through your hands. Most people aren't poor because they can't generate income. They're poor because they can't hold on to money long enough for it to become an asset. They make 5 figures, 6 figures, and spend it all on things that last a few days on receipts, but stay a lifetime in financial anxiety. It'll run faster, earn more, but forget one thing: you can't fill a leaking bucket. The more you pour in, the more you lose, and the more exhausted you become. You think you need to increase your income to change your life, but no. The first thing you need is to stop and notice how much you're losing without realizing it. Unconscious spending, unmanaged debt, impulsive purchases disguised as self-reward. Every time you give into emotion and pull money from your wallet for something unnecessary, you postpone your future freedom by one more day. Wealth doesn't come from the speed of making money. It comes from the sustainability of how you manage it. True wealth isn't owning expensive things. It's being able to go 3 months without income and not panic. It's having an emergency fund when life hits. It's choosing to invest instead of only consume. It's knowing that every dollar saved and invested wisely is a brick toward freedom. And most importantly, it's not being distracted by showing off. They don't need to buy things to prove anything. They're wealthy because they understand cash flow, not because they chase it. Look at your financial habits. Have you ever received your paycheck and sighed because it disappeared too fast? Have you ever increased your income and still felt the same pressure or worse? That's because you're playing a game with no finish line. Earn more to spend more. No plan, no boundaries, no saving strategy. You think you're living fully, but really you're burning yourself out. You're not poor because of income shortage. You're poor because you live without a system. Wealth isn't how much you make in one go. It's how long you can sustain yourself without scrambling at the end of each month. It's the peace of mind that comes from having a plan, the confidence that comes from having choices, the ability to say no to the wrong things without being strangled by money. And that only happens when you begin to keep what you once thought was too small to matter. A small savings, one rejected impulse purchase, one long-term investment decision. Each small act is a seed accumulated over time. It grows into a forest. You don't need to cut everything to save money. You just need to learn to tell the difference between what brings real value and what only buys temporary emotion, between investment and waste, between living with intention and living in reaction. And remember, saving money isn't about being greedy. It's about understanding that money is a tool to build freedom, not to become a slave to the illusion of surface level success. A person can live simply and still be wealthy. A person can stay low key and still hold deep financial strength. A person can say, I don't need that right now, without feeling inferior. That's strength from within. No racing, no comparing, no proving, just being grounded. Because they know real wealth doesn't come from earning more. It comes from keeping wisely, sustainably, and with enough discipline to make money a foundation, not a burden. No one is born holding the steering wheel of their life. But everyone must choose. Either you get in the driver's seat and steer it, or you sit in the back and let it take you somewhere you never chose. Life doesn't care what you want. It only responds to how you act every day. If you don't make a plan, circumstances will make one for you. If you don't make decisions, others will decide for you. And if you don't master each part of your internal system, your words, thoughts, emotions, and money, you'll end up living in a chain of uncontrolled reactions, thinking you're living, but in truth, just existing inside someone else's script. Modern life gives you the illusion that you're busy, trying on the journey. But the truth is, many people long ago lost the steering wheel to their own lives. They live by someone else's schedule, spend because of social pressure, make choices out of fear, and call it responsibility. No, that's surrender. You can't call it freedom if every choice is rooted in anxiety. You can't say you're truly alive if every morning you wake up not knowing what you're heading toward. Steering your life doesn't mean having all the variables in hand. It means being awake enough to know where you're going, why, and staying conscious of each small decision, even when no one's watching. You don't need a breakthrough to begin steering again. Just look directly at the things you've been letting slide, the words you speak. Do they plant hope or limitation? The thoughts you have when no one's around, are they rooted in belief or doubt? The emotions you carry each week, are they driven or reactive? The way you use money, is it a tool or a leak? Each of those four elements is a co-pilot in your life. You can't just control one and expect the whole system to run smoothly. They must be in sync. You have to be honest with yourself. Are you steering or just coping? The truth is, you're always steering something. Either you steer your life or fear steers it for you. Either you lead the journey or old habits take over. Either you define success or society will define it for you. There is no neutral zone. Every decision you avoid will be made by default, and defaults are rarely good. Defaults are compromises, limits, a life beneath your potential. So if you don't want to live like the rest of the world, don't live the way the rest of the world does. People who live with intention aren't mistake-free. They just don't let mistakes drive. They learn the lesson, adjust the route, and move forward. They don't need to know everything. They just need to know enough to keep choosing, because they understand that if you don't choose for yourself, you'll be chosen for. If you don't command your mind, it'll follow outside noise. If you don't reselect your values, you'll live by outdated standards you never questioned. You can start anytime. You don't need to be perfect. You just need a clear awareness that from this point on, you're the one driving. No more letting emotions drag you down. No more letting others lead. No more letting fear decide. Each day is a new chance to reclaim the driver's seat. And from that seat, you can see further, act deeper, and live with real direction. In the end, steering your life isn't a fantasy. It's a series of intentional choices. It's refusing to wait for the perfect time and using this time to begin. It's refusing to wait for approval and starting to build something you're proud of. Now, to make that more real to you, I do want to say something. Well, it's refusing to let life happen by accident and instead turning it into something you design, because if you don't do that, life will do it for you. And the result, as you already know, is never what you truly wanted. So start right now. And for the first time in a long time, you'll feel you're not just alive, you're driving your life and heading in the right direction.